The morning begins like any other. A small cafe sits along a narrow street in Rome. The city is already awake. Merchants roll open wooden doors. Workers move crates from carts. The smell of bread drifts into the street. Inside the cafe, a man sits near the window. He watches the street. Soldiers walk past in polished armor. Their shields reflect the morning sun. To most people in the city, this sight means safety. Rome is strong. Rome is protected. Rome rules the world. For generations, people believed something simple. Rome was too powerful to fall. Its armies had conquered kingdoms. Its roads stretched across continents. Its laws governed millions of people. From Britain to North Africa to the Middle East, Rome was everywhere. And everywhere Rome went, its power followed. But power has a strange habit. At its peak, take a second, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell me in the comments one simple question. Do powerful nations collapse suddenly? Or do they slowly break from the inside? Because Rome's story might reveal something most people never see coming. It often looks permanent, even when the cracks have already begun. Because empires rarely collapse suddenly. They weaken slowly, quietly, often in ways most people cannot see. And by the time the signs become obvious, it is already too late. Rome's story is not simply about invasion, or barbarian armies, or a single catastrophic battle. It is about something deeper, a pattern that is repeated throughout history, a pattern that powerful nations often fail to recognize until the moment it is already unfolding around them. To understand what happened, we need to go back to a moment when Rome looked unstoppable. At its height, the Roman Empire controlled nearly the entire Mediterranean world. Its population was massive. Its cities were wealthy. Trade flowed through its ports. Roman engineering connected the empire with thousands of miles of roads. Messages could travel faster than ever before. Armies could move quickly across vast territories. For centuries, the system worked. Rome expanded. Rome absorbed new lands. Rome grew richer. And every victory reinforced the same belief. The empire would last forever. But expansion carries a hidden cost. Every new territory requires protection. Every border needs soldiers. Every distant province requires governors, supplies, and constant attention. At first, Rome managed this challenge well. Its legions were disciplined. Its commanders were respected. But over time, the empire became too large to control easily. Borders stretched thousands of miles. Enemies surrounded the empire from every direction. Germanic tribes in the north, Persian forces in the east, unrest inside distant provinces. The Roman army had to be everywhere, and being everywhere meant something dangerous. It meant the empire was constantly under pressure. Pressure on its soldiers, pressure on its economy, pressure on its political system. Because maintaining an empire that size was incredibly expensive. Armies had to be paid. Roads had to be maintained. Cities had to be supplied with grain. Taxes increased. The government struggled to balance its finances. Inflation began to weaken the currency. Economic stability slowly eroded. But money was only part of the problem. Inside Rome itself, politics became increasingly unstable. Power struggles between emperors became common. Military commanders sometimes turned their armies against Rome itself. Civil wars erupted. Leadership changed constantly, and each crisis weakened the system just a little more. Meanwhile, the Roman army began to change. For centuries, Rome's strength came from disciplined citizen soldiers, men who believed they were defending their homeland. But as the empire grew, recruiting enough Roman citizens became harder. So Rome made a decision. It began recruiting soldiers from outside the empire, foreign fighters, mercenaries. At first, this seemed like a practical solution. They filled the ranks. They helped defend the borders. But over time, this change carried consequences. These soldiers did not always feel loyalty to Rome. Their allegiance was often to whoever paid them. And when the empire struggled financially, that loyalty became uncertain. The structure that had once made Rome powerful was slowly shifting. And most people living inside the empire did not realize how serious the situation had become, because daily life continued. Markets stayed open. Trade ships still arrived in port. Cities remained crowded and active. To the average citizen, Rome still looked powerful. But power is not only about appearance. It is about stability. And stability is fragile, especially when multiple pressures begin to build at the same time. Economic strain, political instability, military transformation, border pressure. Each problem alone might have been manageable. Together, they created something far more dangerous, a slow weakening of the entire system. And then, the external pressure intensified. In the late 4th and 5th centuries, large migrations began pushing toward Roman territory. Tribes seeking land, refugees fleeing conflict, entire populations moving westward. Rome attempted to manage these movements, sometimes peacefully, sometimes through force. But its ability to control events was fading. The empire that once dictated terms was now reacting, defending, trying to hold its borders together. And slowly, those borders began to crack. Cities were attacked. Territories were lost. Roman authority weakened in distant provinces. Then came the moment that shocked the ancient world. In the year 410, Rome itself was sacked. For nearly 800 years, the city had not fallen to a foreign enemy. To many people across the empire, this moment felt unimaginable. The eternal city, violated. But even that event was not the true end. Rome continued for decades afterward. The system kept functioning, partially, but the direction had already changed. The Western Roman Empire was no longer expanding. It was shrinking, holding ground, losing control, until finally, in 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor was removed from power. The empire that had dominated the world for centuries was gone, not because of a single battle, not because of a single enemy, but because of something far more complex. Rome fell because the system that sustained its power slowly stopped working. Its economy weakened, its politics fractured, its military structure changed, its borders became impossible to defend. And each of those changes happened gradually, year by year, decision by decision, crisis by crisis. Most people inside the empire never saw the full picture. They experienced only small pieces of it. A tax increase, a political dispute, a distant war, a rumor of unrest at the frontier. Each event seemed manageable, but together they were reshaping the empire. History often teaches us something uncomfortable. Great powers rarely believe they're vulnerable, especially when they are at their strongest. Rome believed its system would last forever. Many empires have believed the same. But power is not permanent. It must constantly adapt, constantly adjust, because the pressures that shape history never truly disappear. They only change form. And sometimes, the greatest warning from the past is not how an empire collapsed. It is how long it took to realize that the collapse had already begun.